There was a phone call at an airport in Manchester that tells you everything you need to know about how badly this move went wrong. A player, bags packed, ready to board a flight to Istanbul to salvage what was left of his career, only for his phone to ring and a club director to tell him to turn around and go home. That player was Tyrell Malacia, and by the time he actually did leave Old Trafford for good, it wasn't with a dramatic transfer fee or a guard of honour. It was as a free agent, quietly released after 4 years, that promised so much and delivered so little. So today we're breaking down exactly why Manchester United's left-back gamble with Tyrell Malacia never worked out, despite the club crying out for a reliable option in that position for years. Let's start with how this all began, because Malacia's arrival in the summer of 2022 wasn't some speculative punt. United paid Feyenoord around £13 million for a 22-year-old who'd just been named in the Europa Conference League Team of the Season and had genuine pedigree as a combative, low centre of gravity fullback who loved to get forward. Erik ten Hag knew him well from Dutch football and trusted him immediately. And for one season, it looked like money well spent. Malacia started United's opening day win over Brighton, became first choice ahead of a struggling Luke Shaw for large stretches, and was part of the squad that lifted the Carabao Cup in 2023, United's first trophy in 6 years. He wasn't flashy, but he was combative, energetic, and gave United something they'd lacked at left-back for a long time: genuine competition and reliability. Then the injuries came, and they never really stopped. What started as a knee problem spiraled into multiple surgeries and a rehabilitation nightmare that wiped out almost his entire third season at the club. He missed the whole of the 2023-24 campaign, a run of absence that eventually stretched to roughly 517 days without playing a competitive match. Think about that figure for a second. That's not a niggle, that's almost 2 years completely lost, at exactly the age when a young fullback should be building momentum, sharpening his game, and cementing a starting spot. Instead, Malacia was stuck in the treatment room while United cycled through other options at left-back. And by the time he finally returned to first-team training in late 2024, the landscape at Old Trafford had shifted entirely without him. His comeback under Ruben Amorim was cautious, a handful of appearances to test the knee, but it never sparked into anything resembling his old level. So, in February 2025, United sent him out on loan to PSV Eindhoven to find some rhythm back in Dutch football away from the pressure of the Premier League. He won a league title there, which sounds impressive on paper, but the reality was he started only 6 of the 12 matches he featured in. Hardly the kind of sustained run of games a player rebuilding his career desperately needed. PSV had the option to make it permanent. They didn't take it, and that in many ways told its own story about where his value stood in the market at that point. What followed next season was almost cruelly symbolic of his entire United career. He returned to Old Trafford still contracted, still training, but essentially a forgotten man behind Luke Shaw and the club's other defensive options. Then, in January, with his exit seemingly agreed and a loan move to Besiktas in Turkey all but done, Malacia was literally at the airport ready to fly out for his medical when United's director of football, Jason Wilcox, called and pulled the plug. Patrick Dorgu had just picked up a hamstring injury, and United suddenly worried they'd be short at left-back without emergency cover. So a player who'd been frozen out for months, who wanted nothing more than regular football somewhere, anywhere, was told to unpack his bags and stay put as an unwanted squad man. Dutch outlet Voetbal International described the fallout as leaving him in a state of disbelief, with sources close to him saying it felt like a betrayal of trust after everything he'd already been through with his body. The cruel irony is that being blocked from leaving didn't even translate into playing time. Malacia made just 2 appearances for the rest of the season, both fleeting substitute cameos against Newcastle United, amounting to barely a handful of minutes across the entire second half of the campaign. He'd been kept at a club purely as insurance, then barely used even when that insurance was theoretically needed. It's hard to think of a more deflating way for a 4-year spell to wind down. When United's official statement confirming his exit finally arrived in May, it read almost like an obituary for wasted potential, thanking him for his efforts and noting he'd made just 49 appearances in total since 2022, a startlingly low number for someone who'd been at the club that long. Michael Carrick, serving as interim manager at the time, made a point of publicly backing him in front of the Old Trafford crowd before the final home game against Nottingham Forest, telling supporters that Malacia had been through a tough time with injuries and deserved their support. It was a classy gesture, and Malacia was given a framed shirt and applauded on his lap of appreciation. But warm send-offs don't change the fundamental story here. This was a transfer that simply never got the chance to prove itself because the player's body kept betraying him at every crucial juncture. Since leaving, Malacia has been remarkably measured about the whole saga. Speaking to ESPN in the Netherlands in his first interview since departing, he called it a closed chapter, saying he experienced beautiful things at United, and less beautiful ones too, but that he's now focused purely on what comes next. When pushed on whether his guarded comments were fueling gossip about what really went on behind the scenes, he made clear he has no interest in feeding rumour mongers, adding that he plans to tell the full story only once his playing days are done. That's a fascinating tease for anyone wanting the complete picture of dressing room politics, injury management, and whatever really soured that relationship with the club's hierarchy. For now though, Malacia insists he's never felt fitter, and he hasn't ruled out targeting a recall to the Dutch national team with the 2028 Euros and 2030 World Cup on the horizon. Clubs like Roma, Besiktas, Porto and Celtic have all been credited with interest at various points, though as of now he remains unsigned, weighing up where that fresh start actually happens. Which brings us neatly to what United do now, because Malacia's exit leaves a genuine gap, with Patrick Dorgu being used almost exclusively as an attacking wide option under Carrick and Luke Shaw, now the only recognised senior left-back heading into a season that includes Champions League football. Reinforcing that position isn't optional, it's essential. Multiple British outlets report United have narrowed their search to two realistic frontrunners: Newcastle's Lewis Hall, a 21-year-old who missed out on Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad and is reportedly unsettled at St James Park, and Fulham's Antonee Robinson, the experienced American international available for a considerably more modest fee in the region of $35 million. Names like Alejandro Balde and Jed Spence have floated around the rumour mill too, but Hall and Robinson are consistently described as the two names United's recruitment team are actively working through. Looking back, Tyrell Malacia's Manchester United story isn't really a tale of a bad signing. It's a tale of brutally bad luck, a promising young fullback whose body simply stopped cooperating at the worst possible moment, compounded by a club that, fairly or not, ended up trapping him in limbo when all he wanted was to play football somewhere he was actually needed. Whether he rebuilds his career elsewhere and forces his way back into Netherlands plans remains to be seen, but for United, the lesson is clear. The left-back search that started with so much promise back in 2022 is starting all over again. Who do you think United will sign in the position? Let us know in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. Also be sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time, bye.
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favourites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.